Welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, Vee
and Sean. We interview people in the creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
Today, we have with us Justin, aka J.L. Westover, aka Mr. Lovenstein.
Hi!
Hello.
The man of AKs.
Thank you. The man, it sounded like you said man of AKs. Like I got a lot of guns.
The man of the man of AKs, the gunman. The man made of guns.
But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
For those of you who can't see him, he maybe looks the least made of guns out of any man that I've ever seen. Just to make
That's
sure you
so
know.
sweet of you to say.
He actually
thank you.
He looks just like a little white man with a little yellow hat and a pink shirt.
Just close your eyes and imagine the picture that Vee
I'm
is
picturing
painting.
like if like there was a manhunt and the cops are talking over to each other like, all right, suspect is a little white man with a yellow
Doesn't
hat.
look like he's made of
Hangs
guns.
out with.
I was trying to describe the way you draw yourself in your.
I'm like the opposite of the man in the yellow hat from Curious George. It's I'm a little guy, but then I have like a curious gorilla. It's actually a little frightening.
I've seen your comics for like around the internet for a while, and they're absolutely amazing. I think it's just so crazy how you always come up with. I don't know. They're always good. Is the thing is like. You're like consistently putting out comics that are hilarious and very wholesome
Thank you.
too.
Oh yeah.
When did you start making comics?
Oh, it's always hard to like pin a time, but lifelong doodler.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely like one of my favorite pastimes. And as far as comics, like actually making like proper comics was in high school. So this would be like mid 2000s. And that was when I started reading like webcomics. So like the big one was Cyanide and Happiness. I was seeing that like on MySpace, because they were kind of pioneers of getting around through social media. And, they're kind of stick figure-y, but not quite. And I was just inspired by a story that Chris Wilson was talking about in an interview where he said that like one day he was just sick, home from school in high school, and he's like, "Well, I always wanted to start a comic series, so today's the day." And he drew like 20, 30 comics, and that ended up becoming Cyanide and Happiness. And I was like, and then I had the exact same moment where I was home from school sick, and I was like, "All right, this is my Chris Wilson moment. I'm going to follow."
Were you faking sick, or were you? Really
I was probably
sick?
faking sick back then.
Did you fake sick? Did you fake sick to have a comic moment?
Yeah, like artificially trigger my comic moment.
Yeah. You're like step one, be sick.
You have to be sick, or you'll never start a comic series. You do hear that a lot in like biographies of like famous people. Like they were really sickly as a child, and, they were home all the time, and that's when they would think about creative things, and that's what led to them getting to where they got. But so I drew all those comics, and the rush was to share them to my friends at school and get a laugh out of them. And I called it Left and Right, and there was a guy on the left and there was a guy on the right.
Nice.
Yeah, really basic, but that's what you
get what you see.
Yeah.
Exactly what you imagine.
I deliver. And so throughout high school, I was drawing those. And then I kind of got sidelined because I graduated and I didn't really know what to do. And even then, I was like, I know that there's no money in art.
Mm-hmm.
And I should do something that makes money. And I don't know, I kind of like business and economics. So I went to my tech school to study marketing and kind of stopped doing art for a while. But at some point towards the end of that, I was getting really bored with, unsurprisingly, I was getting bored with marketing and macro and microeconomics.
You were getting bored of that?
Yeah, as thrilling as that sounds. the Peter principle and the Thomas
I
curve.
don't even know what that is.
That's fascinating. Let me get into it. Y'all heard about this supply and demand shit?
Crash course.
So when you have a guy named Peter, you know a guy named Peter is going to do this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, and he's principled. So like I started doodling on the back of my homework, and that is where Mr. Lovenstein began, because I was like taking a new approach. Instead of like the stick figure guys, I was like, what if I actually like tried to draw? And they had like hands and like different camera angles and stuff like that. Literally, like on the back of like one of my assignments, I drew what became the very first Mr. Lovenstein. But the next hurdle was like, well, how do I get this on the internet? That's what I wanted to do, was make my own webcomic. And I didn't have like a scanner or way of like transferring like physical media. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to learn how to use a graphics tablet. So I bought like the cheapest, crappiest tablet from a company that no longer exists called Manhattan. Still have it. It was so tiny. It was so jank.
Do you mean like the drawing surface was like 4" by 4" or something?
Yeah,
like that
it was
small?
so itty bitty. I was like drawing on like a postage stamp.
Wow.
I got a 1" by 1" graphic tablet.
It's smaller than a trackpad.
Yeah, I could just do these like little. I was like doing stippling. Yeah. So I learned that, and like at the same time I was like I kind of want to dabble in animation too. I don't know, like I had this like need to just get back in art and be creative again, and I was like going in all these directions. So I got comfortable with Adobe Animate, or at the time Adobe Flash, and I got stuck with it, and I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm gonna draw my comics into. And I just happened to have a friend who built websites for funsies. It was so lucky.
Oh, wow.
Had this tech friend.
That's rare.
Yeah, and like we had done like projects before where I tried creative writing for a while, and we made some websites doing that, and that went nowhere. That's stuff I look back on and truly cringe.
Creativewriting.com.
Well, when you say creative writing, like
.biz.
was it like, what is it, kind of more like, I don't know, jokes?
I was trying to make like funny articles.
Okay.
You
Like the Onion type of things.
Yeah, like something awful, or just joke websites.
Just not fanfic is what I'm.
No. I'd be like, it was like top 10 reasons why.
Were you writing Zelda fanfics or?
Yeah. I did write this erotica of Dexter's Laboratory that I'm really proud of. No, it was nothing like that.
I want to read.
Hook me up after the show. But so he made a website for me so I could put my comics on there, and that was super important back then, because this was 2010, and this was like right when social media was really taking off. But like you still had to have a website to put your stuff on, and that's like we're all like all the big shots in the webcomic world, they had a website. So I was just so happy to be able to like start uploading my comics on there. So like in like September 2010, I had decided I was gonna go study art. I'd gotten my marketing degree, so I was like, okay, well, I did the business thing. Now, before I'm 50 years old and regret my decisions in my youth, I'm going to pursue art. So I went to uni to get a bachelor's of art, of fine art, 2D design.
Oh, fine arts. Where was that?
This was in central Wisconsin. So I studied at the fine institution of University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, which is known for forestry and like rural urban management, like a lot of like outdoorsy stuff, but they just happen to have like an okay art program, and I lived close to it, so I was like, okay,
nice.
And so I started studying art, and simultaneously started doing Mr. Lovenstein.
Oh, nice.
And I set a goal for myself, because up until that point I was just so bad at hobbies. Like I would pick something up, do it for a little while, drop it, move on to the next thing. For this, I was like, okay, I want to stick to this. So every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday, I need to have a new comic. Hell or high water, you need to put something online. And I stuck to that. So for 4 years, I did that as a hobby. And I mean, I would, it'd be like 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I'm like, I gotta have something. And I would, slap something together. Just, it'd be like the worst thing you've ever seen, but it kept that rhythm going. And it kept me creating.
And were you putting all these out, or were you? Was it just a personal goal?
I was posting them. So yeah, like I was posting them on my website, and then this was like right when social media started booming, so I was posting it on Facebook and Twitter and MySpace for like the one last gasp it had that year. And then like I would do like I didn't know how to despite studying marketing for 2 years, I was still like, how do I get this out to people?
That's what I was going to ask
dumb
you.
shit.
I was like, did the marketing studies help you out at all in your endeavor? because I feel like as a webcomic artist, like at least an internet artist, you have to know how to advertise yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are like every webcomic artist who's trying to like do something financial with it. You are like a small business owner. So yeah, I would say like the marketing did come around and actually helped me out long term. But I was doing gimmicky stuff, like I was printing out every new comic and taping it to the outside of my dorm room door and hoping people in my dorm would walk past and laugh at it and maybe start following me. And like it would happen sometimes, like I could hear people gathering outside my room and reading it out loud and cracking up. And the janitor, one time I was like hanging out like in like a common area, and he's like, hey man, you the guy who does the comics? Good stuff, keep it up, I love it. I love seeing your new comics.
That's so
I was like, all right, well, if just for the janitor.
He started solving math equations on your comic.
Yeah.
They get he gets discovered, and they're like, he did it, he's a genius, we gotta hire him. And like they run off with your comic. Someone finally did something amazing on this piece of paper.
Or like he's like punching up my jokes and like actually making them funny.
He gets hired to SNL.
He's a genius.
Right, yeah.
He's a secret genius.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He took these bad, unfunny comics and did the miraculous thing of making them funny. But yeah, so it was this weird synergy of like I'm steeped in art and I'm getting better at drawing, and then at the same time I'm getting better at writing and making comics. And then eventually I started submitting my comics to the college newspaper.
Oh, nice.
So I was seeing like my comics in a newspaper for the first time, which was wild. So yeah, and that was just as a hobby for just 4 years straight. And then I graduated, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I moved. I made a big move. I moved down to North Carolina to be with my now wife. And so I had this completely fresh break, clean start. And once again, just very lucky timing on my part. Patreon had just like started like the year prior. And, like things like Kickstarter were becoming more commonplace. And there's all these like avenues you could pursue to get like actually money out of making comics. I was like, all right, I built up this big library. I kind of figured out how to make comics. Okay, I have like a decently sized audience. Let's do it. Fuck it. I'll make this a full-time gig. And never looked back.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So you kind of like when you were considering it as a hobby, that was the phase where you were growing your audience. Did you have any goals, or were you just like, okay, this is a hobby, I'm not gonna like put pressure on myself, the only kind of quote unquote pressure I have is to put out 3 comics a week?
I mean, there were like I was like pushing myself to get better and make funnier, better comics. I mean, I was mostly motivated by like one, like the very unhealthy addiction to online validation and watching those numbers go up.
Yes.
Big number good.
It's hard not to be addicted to it. Yeah.
It's too easy because it's so easy to measure things. Like, I don't know how they did it back in the day, like for newspapers where like your feedback was what, like someone wrote you a letter that was like either like, I love the antics of Beetle Bailey, keep it up, cracking me
But you
up.
could use
But you know what's
Jesus.
funny though? I read in an interview of Bill Watterson that he said that now, like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of like, oh, it's he believes it's much harder now for comic artists because back in his days it wasn't as competitive as it is now, because it was just kind of like you
Really, Bill Watterson says it?
well because of you submitted your portfolio and stuff, and once you're in the paper, you're making your comics, and yes, you have your editor giving you feedback and stuff, but now it's just because, like you said, it's like you're a small business and you're doing so many things, right? Like now you have to put out your merch yourself, you have to advertise yourself and all that, whereas back in the day it was just like, okay, you can just draw a comic a week and then you get your paycheck. I'm paraphrasing and I would have to find that again, but that's kind of I read
That sounds like some survivorship bias or something. Like
I'm picturing Bill Watterson getting his first negative comment on Instagram and going, I quit. like it's,
yeah, he's been insulated for all those years. Because like, yeah, he retired in what, like 95, and that's like right when the internet was really like kicking off. So I could see him like putting one comic on the internet and someone just commented like bad. He was like, nope. All right, everyone, I'm officially retiring. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go off the grid. You can no longer speak to me.
Just says like Garfield is better.
Yeah, and he's like,
okay,
I can't believe that. Like Gary Larson did the same thing, because he like famously wrote that letter of like, don't put my comics on the internet, please. They don't belong there.
I think it's also
like,
just
good
like
fucking luck.
No, but I mean, what you're saying, there's like something that's a little true there in terms of like these comics were made for like the newspaper, and you don't read them the same way you read web comics, right? I feel like when you come across a comic online, you expect like a certain rhythm, you expect a certain amount of panels, because it's like there's so much structure that's like given by like the algorithm and or the the platform. Like you know how, like, for example, like a Calvin and Hobbes could be like a full 2-page or sometimes just like 5 panels, whereas I feel like that's a little bit harder to do sometimes on the internet, but I could be biased.
God, this is fascinating, because you can make counterpoints either way, because there's so many limitations in a newspaper too, of like physical limitations. So I mean, that's why so many of them ended up being like these like horizontal 3-panel strips.
Yeah.
And it's like the minimum number of panels you need to get like a joke to work. And then like Watterson was like known for like trying to like fight for more space to get more art in there, and like more complicated little jokes. And they had to be in black and white Monday through Friday. But yeah, they're so different from each other, because like he said, it's weird for him to say that it's harder now. It's harder to make perhaps a really good living, but like to break into like a newspaper with like syndication,
I think that's what he meant.
Impossible.
Is making a living.
Like, yeah, if you get syndicated, but like to get to that stage is like there's so many poor people like before the internet who like like submitting their big like portfolio to these newspaper syndicates and getting denied like 1,000 times and never getting the chance. Or
my dad tried to be a comic strip artist, and he used to try to submit to newspapers, and he never got.
I feel like I need to find that
dad
quote.
could have been.
He used to tell me stories
legend.
about his dream that never came true.
Bastards.
And he used to show me his like on paper comics, like this big, that like look at this, and then
look at this.
I think he always regretted not being a comic strip artist.
Yeah, and like if in a different time, like now, your dad could have at least put his comics online and no one could stop him. He could make his own website, he could start posting on social media, and then if you're good, it'll get sorted out, and the algorithm is evil, and
we'll comment under it. Garfield is better.
Yeah. And then he quits. Webcomics were a mistake.
Webcomics were a mistake.
The name webcomics might have been a mistake. Kind of wish we had not gone with the term webcomic.
Because who else calls it web? You
Like,
know,
no one uses
like no
web.
one's like a web influencer.
Right.
Well, I wonder. Yeah, that's so interesting. So funny. I think. Oh man, I've never thought of that, but it's true that like. Well, I guess now they're called webtoons. I guess, or I don't know.
Well, that's like a company.
Yeah. No,
And
but
still,
I'm like
they're using.
I'm so surprised, but like that's became the word that a lot of people use for like I guess for a serialized online comic. They call it a webtoon, even though even if it's not on webtoons. It's like it's
And sometimes, if you're lucky, it gets called a meme. Great memes, dude.
If
Keep
you're
it
lucky
up.
and you've completely lost control of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And no one knows you did it anymore.
And it's getting edited, and they're making your comic out to say things you never meant to be said.
That's so crazy. Yeah. I'm sure that's happened to you a bunch.
But yeah, see, like getting back to like the numbers,
Mhm.
there is something about posting online and get instantaneous feedback on something you just spent, a day on, and having these like concrete numbers to measure everything on. Like, okay, I posted this comic today, it got 100 likes, and then tomorrow I post a comic and it got 87. It's like, is this a worse comic? Did I did I execute on this poorly, or did I post at the wrong time? Was the algorithm to blame? Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really easy to get caught up on that. And then you factor in multiple platforms that measure things differently and display things differently. And soon enough, you feel like you're not a comic artist anymore. You're like a fucking statistician, and you have like spreadsheets. You're like, okay, so it seems to me that if I post at 2 p.m. on Thursdays on Instagram, I'm getting maximum, reach here. But instead of just, focusing on like writing a good joke and making the art good, which is tied into it, like inextricably. But it is like, it almost feels like you're going to the goddamn comic dojo, and it really trains you up fast. Because, if you're just drawing comics and sharing them with your friends and family, you're going to get a lot of positive feedback, unless you get that one like uncle who's likes to be blunt, likes to tell you how it is.
I don't get your humor. You should make humor for people like me.
This isn't how you draw a dog.
Yeah, really focused on the dog.
Everything's got to be political.
Everything.
With these comics nowadays.
But online, people have no filter. They're going to give you the most honest feedback you're ever going to get. Some of it being like a little too like it's not helpful. Obviously, a lot of it is just people being cruel for cruelty's sake, as humans like to do. But if you ignore the extreme opinions, and you also allow yourself to accept that not everything's going to be your best output, and you have room to grow, you can get really good really fast by posting online. That I just don't think you would get otherwise.
Yeah, so true. I was wondering too, because you were talking about how you were you started your comic when you were in, or at least you were doing it when you were in fine arts college. How is fine arts for you? Like, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like in my experience, fine arts are always kind of look at comics and animation like they're like lower kind of arts. Like, did you experience that at all, or was it just kind of like, did you kind of really keep it separate? And
you're absolutely right. It is looked as like a lower form of art. I had one class in college that was like, I think it was called just graphic narration. They can't even call it comics.
yeah,
they gotta jazz it up a bit. But it was all about comics, and that professor, he had just put that course together on like my last semester there, so it was very lucky on my part. And he was all about, classic newspaper strips and even like long form stuff like Mouse. You know, we studied the graphic novel Mouse and just like the art and the way he used the lighting and all that. But you know, we're also looking at like Little Nemo and Slumberland and Crazy Cat, like the really old newspaper strips. And he was trying to like impart like the art and the skill of comic strips. And it's like, yeah, if you look at like a Peanuts comic, a lot of it is just like two people standing in profile, talking to each other, but you can be really dynamic and you can have these crazy camera angles and extreme lighting and color and etc. But by and large, yeah, it was just like advanced drawing, painting. I actually learned how to paint in college. I wasn't much of a painter before then. And, that actually like bled into my comics, because then I was studying like color theory and learning the names of colors and how they interact with each other. And, like life drawing class, I'm looking at people's bodies and it's like, oh, okay, so that's how a leg is attached to the butt. And
Picturing you going, this one is yellow.
yeah, blowing my goddamn mind. Oh, I didn't know you called these things had names and shit.
I usually don't let my yellow touch my blue, but when you do, there's an alchemic reaction and it turns into this. What is this one? Is green? This is green?
Yeah, I'm like staring at a rainbow and like losing my, like I'm like having an acid freak out. Oh, all these colors are touching each other.
Comics have all been primary colors before this.
Yeah, I only did like red, yellow, blue. Like, I don't fuck with purple. Shit's crazy, man. Like two colors together at the same time.
I don't know how to get it. I wish I did.
Yeah. Professor's coming over to console me, petting my back. I'm just like, oh, you'll get this. You'll get this.
I am unlocking hidden techniques right now.
But yeah, so like I did like printmaking, which was like weirdly similar to comics, where you have to like keep your your lines clean and have like these like solid like like you're doing blocking and stuff like that, and like concerned with layout. So they fed into each other, but by and large, no. Like I was there was, yes, absolutely my art classes where I'm doing the fine arts, and then I would go back to my dorm and be drawing my stupid comics with like butts and farts and dicks and stuff like that.
Would you still call your comics stupid, or do you feel like you're calling it stupid because they were not as good back then?
Like they are definitely worse.
Like you're like, I'm just, I gotta go into my study, honey. I have to draw my stupid comics again. And that was today.
It is like a way, like a self-deprecating thing to kind of protect yourself. They just call them stupid, but they also are stupid. But like I'm not trying to most of the time do like high art. I'm not trying to like express complicated ideas. I'm just like the art for me in my comics always was and still is like a vehicle to tell a joke. As much as I like love art and have studied it, I'm definitely more interested in the writing side, the joke telling, the joke craft, and I do appreciate like when art is like really nice in a comic, but to me it's like, is it enhancing the joke, and do I need it? Like I often just try to like cut out as much as I can without it making look like stick figures, and just maintaining a certain type of style. So as far as like the art goes, over the years I've definitely geared more and more as like a service to the joke.
I like that when before we started recording, we were talking about your dogs and how like they're like really beautiful dogs.
Hot dogs for the rest of the
episode. Oh yeah, we never addressed it.
We gotta address the dog in the room.
We're dog in the room.
The dog.
But it's funny because you were talking about how you don't draw dogs in your comics like the dogs that you own, because the dogs you own are too beautiful and they're not suitable for joke. Can you talk?
That's actually like a fantastic.
They're these big graceful noodle bodies.
Can you talk about
Oh,
that
that's
a
a
little
like
bit?
that's a great way to like a fantastic example of what we're talking about. Of like, yes, my dogs are too beautiful for my comics. For my horrible comics.
I want to see how you would draw your dogs actually now. Like if you're down,
I do draw them.
I'd like to see how you would do it.
I have drawn them several times.
Even though there's no room, even though we've taken up all the room.
I love the way you've drawn. This is gorgeous. I like them all noodly. They're perfect for that. Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned, but yeah, I have Salukis, and they're like long noodly dogs. And like for a while when like the Borzoi meme was going around, everybody every time they saw a picture of my dogs, they thought it was a Borzoi, but they're like that, very regal looking. But exactly what you're saying is like the way I draw my comics, my dogs and those are really derpy looking, very like chunky, and like the eyeballs are squished together, very goofy. And I do that in the service of the joke. It gets into like stuff like I learned from Scott McCloud. Like I almost feel like designated reading for any like comic artist is the book Understanding Comics. And he kind of just breaks down like how you communicate in comic strips. And one of the things he points out is like it's more universal the more you simplify the art. So, you know, if you drew like this hyper realistic like person, no one's going to relate to them because it's just like it just becomes like an individual, versus if you just did like how I draw like a round head with a couple of dots and a mouth, that can be anybody. That's me. Oh my god, that's me.
That's me. Hey, that's me. He drew me.
He drew me, guys. Come over here. Look at this.
I feel like he drew me. You gotta see this. This comic artist drew me.
You look at him, he actually has like just dots for eyes. It'd be horrifying. So, and I think that extends to like all aspects, including, you know, dogs. If I drew like this very realistic Saluki, people are like, that ain't my dog. My dog don't look like that. But this to have this,
I'm not gonna share this. My dog doesn't look like that.
I'm offended.
I'm offended.
What I should do is like every comic just do a different breed and just see which one's the most successful. Like just work down the list of like most popular breeds. Just like see which one's hitting. Yeah. He draws a lab, man. But so like my dogs are blobby, derpy little guys because I feel like that I'm capturing like the essence of a dog. It's kind of like if you ever like looked up like ancient Chinese art and like the way they would like depict a horse. They didn't care about like drawing the horse realistically. Their argument was like, you should paint a horse's essence, its spirit, its oeuvre. That's what you're trying to capture. Like that's the whole point of art. And so that's what I'm doing.
So my question to you is why not surround yourself with things that would be in your comic? Like why'd you get noodle dogs over like a dog that would be in your comic? what reverse engineer your life?
Why are you making it
like
so hard
art,
for yourself? How come all of your friends aren't like very blobby round people that are very sweaty? Why do you have these like normal human people that you hang out with? Specifically, the dog thing is just that's my wife's thing. That's her passion in life. I got my comics, and she's got her dogs. She like takes them to dog shows. Like she's been to like Westminster and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, which
That's cool.
makes them sound even fancier. And it's funny because they are the dumbest, derpiest dogs.
If the dogs ever became more famous than you, would you be jealous of them?
Extremely. I'd be furious. I would sabotage my dogs. You know, I would at dog shows. I would like dress up in like the meat suit that like Lady Gaga had and be like dancing around outside the ring to distract him and stuff. And
I thought you were gonna say you would dress up as another dog to try to beat them.
Try to beat them in the ring. I don't think I could win. They got me outclassed.
I love this dog jealousy. But I kind of wanted to talk. So we were talking a little bit about how you decided to go all in your comics after you graduated from fine art school, and you already, so at that time you already had your website set up, you already had like
Yep.
your following kind of at a decent size enough that you were confident about starting that. What were the steps that you took to take your comics like seriously? Like what were the major changes between like, okay, this is a hobby, between now this is my job?
Yeah, that's a huge leap and a very, very scary one.
Yeah.
That it's hard to recommend unless you have like a cushion, or you really, really believe in yourself. So I was lucky in that, like you said, I had the things kind of built up already. I wasn't starting from scratch. But also I had at the time, my girlfriend, now wife, she had a normal stable job that could kind of fill in the gaps in between. But like it was really tough and really tight for 2-3 years.
Oh yeah, huh?
Of just like figuring out how do you actually make money. As fun as making the comics are, you do become a small businessman.
A small businessman.
Yeah,
you have to become shorter. You have to start wearing
suits. Yeah, it looked like penny bags. And like I had to. We had a house that was like we had to like finance through renting out a room through Airbnb. So like while I'm drawing comics, I'm also a host for someone crashing at my place.
Do you have any fun stories from that time, or?
I have a million of those. I could go on. I could go on.
Let's pause here and tell at least one.
Just one.
Just one.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we'll see where we go after one, but we'll start with one.
I'll say this one because it was kind of brief but kind of wild.
I'm so scared.
There was this older couple staying in the room, and they were from some country in Central America, and we didn't really speak that much when they got there the night of. But the next morning, we were hanging out in our living room, and they kept steering the conversation to religion. And if someone's dead set on that, it's really hard to like judo your way out of that conversation. Except like jumping out your window. So and like we're hosts, we gotta they're gonna review us, so we kind of endured it. But turns out like these guys were like evangelists, and I think they were kind of using Airbnb as a way to like evangelize and get people kind of pin people down and give their little speech. So that's what they did. And we were just like, okay, well, we got to like walk our dogs. So we'll get back to you on that. And then we just planned to just never come back and hope they had to leave at some point. But then like we were like got to like the doorway of our house, and that got us like they're standing in front of the door, and like he pulls out a book that he wrote about his journey to Christ and like how he was doing like evangelism down in Central America and stuff like that, and like telling us like you need to make sure you don't go to hell. Like we're here to save you. You need to understand. Like you need to tell us right now that you're going to follow the path of God, so that we know that we've saved you. And eventually we had to just be like, yes, okay, we believe in Jesus and everything you're saying, and amen. And just please leave our homes. It was weird. It was like it felt like being at gunpoint, but it was like a priest. It's like you better believe in God, or I'm gonna bust a cap in your ass.
Wow.
So that was intense.
And you gone to church every Sunday?
Yeah. I mean, they changed our lives. Thank God for them.
We've baptized our dogs, and
yeah, of course. All dogs go to heaven. So yeah, we had a lot of experiences, good ones, bad ones, but and sometimes it made for good fodder for comic strips.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
I couldn't tell you a specific one, but like just being around is weird energy all the time. But yeah, the money making part was a combination of I had my website and I had ads on it through AdSense. So I was getting a little bit of coin from sending people to my website. Then I launched a Patreon, and that was tough because it wasn't that big yet, so I didn't have that many people to look at for like inspiration as an example. So I was kind of really shooting in the dark of like, how do I justify taking people's money every month just to make comics? And then like also just convincing people to do it, because it was a weird new thing of just like, wait, I'm just gonna give you money and you're just gonna make comics. Yeah, that's it.
Like a comic for me?
No, it's just for everybody.
You're gonna put me in a comic?
Yeah, it's just for everyone. Like, you're not gonna be part of it. It's, people who don't pay also see it. It's like, oh,
How do I know you're doing it? Is it like, do you clock in? Like, am I your boss now?
Yes, you are. Yes, sir. So like, yeah, to like figure out like tiers and stuff of like, okay, at this level you get this much, at this level. And simultaneously then I was like, okay, well then I also have to pursue merchandise. That's like another big factor.
Do you feel like I don't know, I feel like recently like there's been a lot of like merchandise manufacturers that have become more convenient. Like when you were trying to figure out merchandise, that was back in, would you say 2010?
This was in 2014. 2014 is when
How were you kind of like what did you start doing? Like, what was your first go-to for merchandise?
The thing at the time, and still kind of is, was t-shirts. Okay. Just like putting stuff on t-shirts. And like I had like my logo, my quote-unquote logo from my comic on there that like nobody bought, because it's not like everybody's like, I love the Mr. Lovenstein brand and I want to rep it for the world to see. Like, no. So then you get like, okay, what's something that someone would actually wear? And it's like, you see people make the mistake of like, well, this comic's funny, so what if I just put the entire comic strip on a t-shirt? No one wants that.
No one wants that.
Like, you just weirdly become like a giant piece of paper for people to read a comic off of. So like figuring out like, I ended up becoming like a t-shirt designer. So then like what I learned real fast is like, you have to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
To be a successful comic person. You have to, know how to like manage a Patreon, manage a website, manage, like advertising, managing social media, designing t-shirts, like I'm doing like apparel design, which is like almost like graphic design.
Yeah.
Like a different discipline. And it was so hard. Thankfully, I happened to upon a couple things without even trying. So one was I have secret panels for all of my comics. And I didn't do it for like the first couple years, but they came about because I did not care about layout for panels.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't care. Like, I just was like, okay, this joke needs 10 panels. So that means there's going to be like 9 panels in a square, and then a 10th panel below that, and then a bunch of just negative space, just very uncomfortable white space. And people would call me out on that all the time of like, wait, it looks like there should be more panels here that you forgot. And as a joke on my website, I started like hiding panels in the blank space if you hovered your mouse cursor over on desktop. And I didn't tell anybody.
Wow.
I was like, I was hoping that people would just happen upon it, and they did, and then it became this
a secret panel.
It was literally a secret panel. And as I got more and more well known and people got into it, like I'd only do it like sporadically, and then they're like, hey, how come there was no secret panel today? I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this for every comic now. And
oh, no.
And like figuring out what is the secret panel. So it became like an extension of the the joke, or like a subversion of the joke, or something random. And then as like social media matured, it became this great way to get people off of social media, because that's like one of the hardest things to do.
Yes.
It's only gotten harder over time, especially with like mobile phones and apps and stuff like that.
Yep.
Just like, how do you get people to just read the comic and then go somewhere else that you're directing them? words. So I just happen to have these secret panels. So then I just I stopped making them really a secret. I'd just be like, all right, I'd post a comic and then be like, and here's the link to the secret panel. And then, in the comments, of course, people are like, not very secret if you're telling us.
Don't click on this secret panel.
Yeah.
Don't click on this very excited secret panel, please.
I wonder if there's something extra on my website you might find. All you sleuths out there. So that was because of that, I was able to drive people to my website, which got me like ad revenue. And then once you get people to your website, you're in control, and you can, promote your merch and promote your Patreon and stuff like that. The Patreon part was and still is like the hardest thing to figure out. And really it just comes down to audience size, I learned.
Yeah.
As you could have the most awesome rewards and, just you're super engaging with your audience and just perfect price points. But if your audience is too small, it's just not going to matter.
Yeah.
But I also pursued things like streaming. So I live streamed. Since I started doing this full time, I've live streamed basically every single comic I've drawn. And I tried to make it exclusive to my patrons, which was also a challenge because like technology needed to catch up. And that was like trying like different platforms, and I had setbacks. Like I used I can't remember the name of the service, something with like cloud in it, but it was working great. But I didn't realize there was like a limit, and once you went over that data limit, they started charging you like crazy.
Oh,
so, like,
shit. Okay.
A couple months in, I'm getting this bill for like $300. Like, what?
No.
Oh no. So like completely erasing the money I had made off of my Patreon.
Ugh. Yeah.
But I was like sending out like physical rewards to people, like a goodie box with random things every single month.
How did you make sure that the goodie box didn't outweigh the money, that like the production of the things in the goodie box doesn't outweigh your
I'll tell you how
what you're getting.
I stopped doing it.
Oh yeah? Because I feel like
because I did math one day.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. If you calculate not only the shipping costs, but buying the boxes, the time spent making the things, the physical things just for all of these, I'm really barely coming out ahead. And this was supposed to be like my premium tier of my Patreon.
Was it like really, was it big? Because I feel like now what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm trying to do, and I think is my most popular tier on my Ko-fi, which is very small because my audience is obviously very small, but is the sticker club. I feel like sticker clubs are pretty popular, and they're like flat. But was your goodie box like an actual box?
It was an actual cardboard box.
Oh, okay.
And like a folding top is nice,
Oh yeah, okay.
Like it was like opening a present every time.
Oh, I see. I
But yeah,
see. It was like deluxe. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that was like things that we all kind of figured out as over the years with Patreon. Is like, yeah, if you can totally do physical rewards, but you should do things that are flat and lightweight and easy to ship. Like stickers and little things like that.
Prints, yeah.
And that was, and then so when I realized how poorly I was going, I never went back. I stopped. I don't do physical rewards to this day. I'm just too scarred.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Honestly, physical rewards are like a lot of work.
Yeah. And then like with the merch, I started like getting kind of like decent at figuring out like what would make for a good shirt design. So money was so tight that when I had like something like big blow up, I'd be like, oh, like it would be like the biggest sigh of relief, like a 10-minute sigh. Oh. And like, so like one I had was, and this had nothing to do with my comic strips. I designed a ugly Christmas sweater. And I had this idea of like, what if it said Hail Satan. But it was like all nice, you know, and had like the, you know, stitched in lettering and like little Christmas trees and random patterns. But then it just said Hail Satan. And then I made another one that said Thug Life with like a little heart in between. And that sold like hotcakes, and like just, and you know, like just thousands of people buying these stupid sweaters. And that would like keep me going, you know, for the next like 2-3 months. And then like I learned that a good merch for comics is prints. You know, like people like a joke, like they like a comic strip, and you know, like people like cut out newspaper stuff and stick it to like their workspace or on a fridge or something. You just tapping into that. So I started selling prints and posters and stuff like that. And that was huge.
So how do you pick which ones that you make a print of? Is it just the ones that were the most popular, or just like ones that you like the most, or
by and large just like the most popular ones. But then there's like ones that just work well as a print. Like for example, a couple of years ago, I had a comic that was like, it was good, but it wasn't like a super popular one, where like a guy is playing on his phone in like a bathroom stall, and another guy like pops his head underneath the stall door and is like, look at you on your phone, you should be living in the moment, and scolding him for like playing on his phone while taking a shit. And it occurred to me, like, you know, if I spin this as something to put in your bathroom, I feel like I could sell a lot. And then it became like one of my best-selling prints still to this day.
Wow.
Just by being like, it's good for the bathroom. And everybody's like, yeah, it would be good for the bathroom. That'd be funny.
I want that in front of my toilet. Nice.
Yeah, I want to poop in front of that.
I want my airborne poop particles to touch that.
Yeah.
On my wall.
I want to make my guests feel bad when they're in my bathroom playing on their phone.
Don't look at my phone. Don't look at your phone. I'll know.
Wait, what? I'll know.
And that makes a lot of sense, though. Like, kind of like thinking about your art as something for the house. Yeah. Well, now I guess you gotta make a kitchen comic and like a bedroom comic, and then like
it's tough to not make that sound like just crass commercialization. It's like completely selling out. Like, all right, this comic is engineered for maximum profits.
I just made this awesome garage comic.
It's more like looking back at things you've made and then like figuring out like, how could I use it, or like just taking a panel, like some art from a panel in isolation, like that would make for a good shirt or a good a printer, yada yada.
Yeah. Here's my waterproof porch print. This is an outdoor print that you can hang out on your porch, but it's waterproof.
When you're kicking back, having a cold one with the boys, one of those kind of prints.
This is one for the deck.
Bring your friends over to show off your deck print.
Right next to the barbecue.
Yeah, that gets like almost back to square one with me putting my comics on my dorm room door. I need to make a dorm room door print for all the college students out there.
Make a comic just for the solicitors that knock on your door. Like
Jehovah's
Witnesses.
Yeah, send them off. So then so I was figuring out stuff like that, and then really it just that went hand in hand with just getting good at social media and building up my audience and just getting better at drawing comics. And also a thing that took me way too long to realize was you need to network and get to know your fellow artists, because that helps a ton, because you know a rising tide raises all ships, and they are not your competition, they are your allies and friends, and we're all just working together as one big team, trying to overcome all these hurdles. And I was very much a go it alone type guy, and just kind of being on like the peripheral, doing my own thing. And I think what finally broke that for me was I was extremely skeptical of going to comic cons and conventions and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
because I was just like, I just don't, for my audience size, I just don't see how I come out ahead, because there's so many sunken costs of like, okay, I have to travel there, I have to pay for table. I have to pay for the merch I'm selling, like food and all that. And I was just like, there's just no way. So I avoided that for years, and then I finally went to one, and that was such an eye-opening experience of just like being around other comic artists is such a boon, and like it helps so much. Like you don't realize how like isolating it is, and it's a thing I'm very jealous of like people who go to offices or like their workplaces have like other people and they're all doing the same thing, and they can just shoot the shit or workshop stuff and kind of bounce ideas off each other and be like my job. But I was doing work from home before it was cool. It is a very isolating, lonely thing. So
like a quarantine hipster.
Yeah. I was making those jokes in 2020 where like, wait, what? There's a pandemic happening? I didn't even notice. We have to stay.
The real pandemic is the kitchen's all out of cookies.
We have to shelter indoors. I've been doing that my whole life. That's a weird brag, my friend. I was already alone. But I got to know like everybody else, and it's like being able to just like complain about things. Like hard, like how like dealing with negative comments and like negativity online, getting like mean emails and stuff like that, and like the struggle of making a living out of it, and also just the fun part of it, like the creation side. Like there was a convention I went to, and we all, this sounds weird, but we all just like busted out our sketch pads and we're like looking through, like, because it kind of felt like a very vulnerable thing to do.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just like it feels like you're kind of opening up your skull and like letting people look in your brain, because that's where like all the idea production generation is going on, is in our sketch pads and notebooks and stuff like that. Like our half brain ideas, our doodles, our thoughts, our sketches, and just like getting to see other people's process. And once I learned that also helped really like turbocharge becoming successful as a comic artist. But it really was just a matter of just like time plus effort plus really like constantly coming up with new ways to not be broke.
Yeah.
You're just doing more art math. Well, I guess the going into marketing and stuff, like thinking about money as the first thing that you did, I'm assuming that helped. Maybe that gave you a little bit of an edge overall.
The marketing?
Do you feel like thinking about the money and marketing and like stuff like that, like doing that first has like in talking to other artists, like have you noticed that has given you any sort of advantage?
Yes. And I think most artists don't really think about the business side too much.
Yeah.
And I totally understand why. And that's like the absolute worst part of it. But I was always a business minded dude because of, the route I took in life. So oftentimes, I see it a lot where I see like up and coming artists, and they're just like not doing the things that will help them actually make a career out of it, like monetarily. Like they're doing all the right things as far as awesome comics, great ideas, very compelling. They're getting online, they're getting better, they're networking and all that stuff. But like the business side, they're not thinking about like all the different ways they could generate revenue. Like the stuff that just sounds like so like antithetical to art, that you don't want to talk about. But it's there. Like if you want to do it as a living,
it's really true.
Not everybody needs to.
I was because even in animation, like when there's people who want to like kind of eventually go indie. I was talking to a buddy of mine recently, and we were just kind of talking about that, how for most artists it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to think about business, I don't want to think about money, like this isn't, like I'm just I'm just doing art and like almost there's a little bit of that idea like, oh no, money's dirty and it's gonna like stay.
Yeah, it's gonna corrupt
Money
the
cheapens the
process.
art,
Yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, but you also I don't know, gotta make a living.
Wanna survive.
Yeah.
We must live in this harsh
Yeah.
capitalist.
You don't want to fall
Regime.
into the Peter fallacy or whatever.
The
you know?
Yeah, the Peter. You don't want that Peter principle coming down on you.
You don't want. You want the.
There's
you don't
no
want the
getting
Peter
out.
Piper
I still
principle.
don't even
Once
know
Peter
what
is
it
principal
is.
in you.
Peter, okay, I have to look it up. And
It's been a while since I've even thought about. It's one of my things I obviously pull out of my pocket as like a businessy term thing.
I think about it once a day, and I don't even know what it is. You know what
I don't know if
mean?
it's
So,
like the thing of like
that's how important
there
it
is a phenomenon where people get promoted to higher and higher ranks in business to they reach a level of incompetence because they don't know what they're doing ananymore.
yes,
Is
I just looked.
that what it is?
Yeah, I just looked it up because it
Okay,
was
that's
driving me
stuck in
crazy.
the old noodle.
Yes.
I earned my associate's diploma.
I love that you brought this on the podcast and then it was a quiz to yourself.
Yeah, I put myself on the spot.
Yeah.
and that's
Very dangerous.
That's how he
But you
achieves
won.
personal
You won.
excellence and maintains it. You know.
Yeah.
This is all a ruse, and I do this all the time. I bring it up, pretend like I might not know it, and I prove I do know it, and then everybody's like, "Wow."
Well, what a good
What a good-
memory. Honestly, very impressive.
Just don't ask about any other business terminology. Okay, let's talk
So-
opportunity costs.
Opportunity cost. So would you say how long would you say it took you for you to feel like kind of comfortable? Like comfortable as in like you didn't feel like you were surviving anymore with your career.
Good question.
Like not surviving, like
I
your
get what
life
you
is
mean.
over, or not surviving.
Like you're not in survival mode anymore, I guess is the question. Yeah. You're,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not like leaping from that next thing that's gonna pay.
How long did it take you until you were dead?
What made you feel like
Yeah,
it was the end of your life?
Yeah, you stop scavenging in the woods for worms and acorns and shit.
And just lay
That
down.
never stopped. Actually, I love that. I learned to love it.
You can't go back. I just make
Every weekend I go primal.
Well, you know, if you reach to the top of the food chain because of the Peter fallacy,
Yeah.
you're going to become
But then
incompetent.
if I become the apex predator,
So you got to just keep foraging.
that's dangerous.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I became small businessman in 2014, and I wouldn't say I was like, this is my like a normal career that like makes like a normal amount of money until like about 2018.
Okay.
So like
4 years.
damn near 4 years. Like
Mm,
it was getting bit by bit better
mm,
every year with some setbacks and stuff like that.
mm.
But I think it was just a culmination of everything that I had been pursuing up to that point.
Yeah.
Because there are other artists out there. I feel like I was a slow grower.
Mm.
I know I'm not like the best of the best out there for sure, and it took me a while to like learn the medium, and I'm still learning. Like every new comic, I'm learning something. But there's other people who just like it seems like they come out of nowhere and they're just like instant success, and that's great. But that was not me.
What would you attribute that what would you attribute like going over that line and being and you're coming out on the other side being like I'm a businessman like I can support myself, like what would you attribute that to?
Mhm.
Is that like audience reaching a certain size of sustainability? Is that you just having like a certain method down so that you have a rhythm and you release a certain amount of prints? Like what do you think caused that like go from scavenging to not
Mhm.
scavenging?
Yeah, and I think that's like the $1 million question that anybody trying to make a living is like wondering
Mm.
the tipping point. I mean, so like 2018 was when what you just said, like everything was kind of like converging of like my audience was hitting critical mass, like I was starting to get like I was averaging like 1 million views on my website every month.
Oh, that's great. Because I was going to ask you that. Like, I was wondering if your website was still getting traffic because I feel like that's something that I hear from of comic artists where it's like you gotta have a website, but then I'm like, but do people really go on the websites? But it sounds like they do, like from what you're saying, like
Well, yeah, and like,
Well, you have a technique,
right,
secret
the
panel.
secret panel.
Secret panel.
That was my secret weapon.
yeah,
Truly.
it's your website. It's not Tapas.
So that's
yeah.
I should get to that next, because that's like the next step that really solidified things. So I picked 2018 because that was like on my own. Everything's doing just well enough that I wasn't embarrassed by the amount of money I was pulling in each month. I was paying my bills with money left over, and it really was, like what Sean said, a convergence of just like audience size, traffic to my website, having just enough good merch that people were buying, building up my Patreon to like much more stable levels and figuring that out more. I learned to, like, with my Patreon, to just go for more people paying less, because then the swings weren't so crazy, and I wasn't like dependent on, like, if one person was like, all right, I'm done with this guy, it wasn't like, oh God, what?
Yeah,
that's my one guy I had.
My guy at the 5,000 tier.
What if I add a second goodie box?
Yeah, will you stay?
I have 2 goodie boxes a month.
I'm on my knees. Yeah, so that was more stable, and like I had been pursuing like odd jobs as well. Like I was doing shit for like networks, like stuff for like Showtime and Illumination and like just whatever.
Wait, what
like,
were you doing for them?
Scraps of like usually it ended up becoming like promotional marketing things. The one with Showtime was the funniest, because luckily that was like 2017 or 2018, and I'm well outside the NDA, so it was this shitty show called Happy-ish that they were launching, and they wanted, because the show was about marketing and advertising, they wanted me to make comics for it on their social media, to like be parallel with whatever episode was coming out, as like a like a thing they could post to just kind of boost their numbers. So then they like sent me the scripts of the that season's episodes, and I had to, like, each episode I had to base a comic around. And I remember reading the script and being like, ooh, I've never read a script for a show before, but this seems bad. This is not funny. This is like not my type of humor. But maybe it'll be better when it comes out. Like, I'm just seeing the script, like a lot happens from now until then. So they like commissioned me to do like 6 comics, and I made them all, and they paid me like ahead of time. Thank God. And then the show got released, and they ran into some problems that I don't know how they did not see coming immediately. Like, one, the show was just bad. It was actually worse watching it than it was the script. You can go look it up. It's Happy-ish at Showtime. Just like there was like parts of, like, I was watching with my wife, and we were just like kind of cringing through parts of it. I was like, yeah, this is what I worked on. And then the other big problem was, like,
We've all been there.
This all happened to us, though. I feel like we've worked on shows that we're like, well, that was money.
That was just a job.
That was just a job, yeah.
But like the other thing was, like, the whole show was like making fun of like marketing and advertising and brands and stuff like that. So then, like, brands did not want to sponsor it. They didn't want to have their ads running while they're making fun of, like Nike and making fun of Dasani and stuff like that. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot, like, revenue wise. So like they had a bad show that nobody wanted to sponsor. So they ended up like canceling it like immediately. And they didn't even like they only used like 2 of my comics.
But you got paid.
But I got paid. But so like all that stuff was like working together to give me like a stable living. But the next year, 2019, Tapas is what really changed the game for me. They were hosting a bunch of us at a Comic-Con in Rhode Island. And like even like one of my friends was organizing it, and he was just trying to recruit as many comic artists as possible. And then like they were like paying for our tables and shit. It was great. And it was like even like people like me who had really no association with Tapas. I had my comics on there because they like hit me up like back in 2014 and like, hey, we have this new platform and we do ad revenue sharing, and it's great, and you can host your comics on there. I was like, cool. So I would just like dump my comics on there, and I'd get like a trickle of money coming in from that. But I got to talk to the people at Tapas at this con, and they were recruiting people for like this creator program. And the difference was, for this, they paid you like a base amount every month just to be exclusively on their platform. And luckily, once again, that secret panel, this paying dividends on top of dividends, they were like, we love that you do this secret panel thing. We're just going to pay to have your secret panels exclusive to Tapas.
Ooh.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's the only reason why people are going to go there. So that is what went like, so I had everything going like stable on my own. And then on top of that, I had Tapas come in and start giving me like, basically you could call a salary. Like I'm a contracted worker, but you know, like, like I was guaranteed this set amount. And you know, there's like metrics and stuff that I won't get into of like, you know, hit this number, please. But that is, and then that is something that only came about because of everything I had been doing for like those 9 years of building up a comic series, building up my audience. And unfortunately,
that consistency.
The consistency. But unfortunately, like a lot of these big companies, they are, as much as you're focused on the numbers, they are even way there. That's all they're focusing on is the numbers. So when they see some artist who's got this big, beautiful follower count on Instagram or something, you know, they're seeing dollar signs, even though that may turn out to not be the case. Like maybe you're doing that for a hobby, or you know, like your audience is like a lot of young people that don't have money to spend, or et cetera, et cetera. But that is sadly, you do need those big ass numbers. You gotta be shaking your big ass number around for them to see, and they come a knocking. And since then, I just like opportunities have come to me, which is insane. Like I felt for so long I was like screaming out into the universe, like, you know, look at my stuff, pay me to do things. And then finally these companies were coming to me and being like, yeah, we like what you're doing. We want to work with you. We respect you. And, you know, and then I was able to like, you know, get into book publishing and stuff like that. So
what's so crazy is that like you had to, it sounds like it was like a really long time that you were putting out content and like really had to have faith in it. What kept you like what keeps you going? Because like that can be really difficult, right? It's like, you know, like you're doing this, you're not making a lot of money, you're getting likes and stuff, but you're kind of like, how'd you kind of overcome the doubt?
Just
what's your pep talk that you give yourself, you know?
Everybody stand up. Stretch it out. I don't know what you're stretching out, but stretch it out.
One hop this time.
Me. Yeah.
Two hop this time.
Cha-cha real smooth.
Slide to the left.
Yeah. You know, that's a big question, because it's like I had so many low points, like serious low points, and it was just a lot of pushing through the pain of like doubt. And the doubt was just like, not only like, you know, am I good at making comics, you know, like the whole like creative side, but then like every month, every year I'm dumping into this is a year that I wasn't pursuing a different career. And, you know, I'm not putting money into my savings. I'm not putting money into my retirement, you know, all the, you know, the American dream bullshit. And I hit those crossroads like all the time. And like, and then you'd be riding high for a couple months, and then it would come crashing down and you're like back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. And I think that's what really separates. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but that like separates the people who like burn out and the people who make it a career. Not just like a living, but a career, is surviving those moments. Yeah. And I had a lot of luck. Like it's easy to say like, if you just push through and believe in yourself, I could have easily like had one too many bad months, and that's curtains, you know. because there's too many harsh realities of life, of like things you need to pay for. And like, and if you have like a partner, how like it's even worse because they're carrying you through those like low points, but like how long can you like allow them to carry you? So for me, it was just, I did believe in myself, as corny as that sounds, as as like anime as that sounds.
No, but
I
think
believed
it's like,
in the power of friendship.
No, but for real, no, you're like that's true, because you like that's the like 101, right? You have to start with believing in yourself, because if you don't, then you're not going to go anywhere, right? It's like the very
doubt will.
Who else is going to if it's not you?
It's like,
you're your
first
best
step.
cheerleader.
Yeah.
And doubt is just a poison that will just infect you, and all it does is self-fulfill. If you're like, you're no good at this, well then you're gonna make bad things to prove yourself right. And if you can push past those thoughts, and then you also have your haters. Shout out to the haters.
Shout out.
Who want you to fail. I got plenty of my own who are like cheer every time I fail, and you know what? Let that motivate you.
Do you have any funny hater stories? Just like people that took time to like, do people write you like letters? Like
I've had thousands.
Or do you not pay them enough mind?
I learned pretty early on, and I've always kind of had a thick skin. Just kind of like through my upbringing, a lot of shit talking in my youth. But I did learn to just kind of tune them out as best you can. They would get into your head sometimes, especially when they're a little bit right, and then you got to take that little grain of truth they're giving you and extract that from the evil they're emanating and move on.
They're like, these eyes aren't drawn realistically. And you're like,
they're right. That would be a funny criticism for me. Like, they look at my comic and they're like, these eyes are not realistic. It's like, well, yeah.
It's like, but you didn't realize until just this moment. Like it's like their comment made you realize that they're not realistic.
Yeah, like you can also let that fuel you, and you shouldn't be like feeding off of it, but you can prove the haters wrong, as they say. And there were times when I would just lean into whatever they're trying to pigeonhole me into. So if you've ever read my comics, you'll see that everybody's working up a sweat, man. Like, so much sweat. They're dripping with sweat. And, I didn't really think about it until someone like called me out on like, all you do is draw for your punchline is like an exasperated face with them sweating, in an uncomfortable situation. And, and I was like, you know what? You're right. And that's fine. That's what I do. So I became the sweat man. I call myself, my comic, the world's sweatiest comic. And
so you amped it up. You leaned into it.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's fine. Like, so sweat is part of my brand, I guess. And I didn't look at it as a crutch. Like, if I get caught into like doing the same joke one too many times, I would shake it up. But that was just as an example of like a thing that they were trying to like be like, you're just this, and that's why you're bad. And I'm like, I'm just that, and that's why I'm good. So you lose. And I've now drawn you as a sad little man and drew myself really buff, so I win. But like there was like plenty of times where I, this podcast called Creative Block, and I certainly had my fair share of those, of just hitting an absolute wall and pushing through, like just punching my way through these walls. And that's the thing I tell like up and coming artists, is like, that's a big thing that will set you on your path to success. Is when you start, it's kind of like that first album a band puts out, and you had all these ideas you've been been swirling in your brain, just hit after hit. You get them all out there. All right, and then you've expended your tank of ideas, and now you got to start pulling from nowhere again. And I feel like, like that sophomoric slump that like most creative people hit. And then you learn that it's not a sophomoric slump, it's just slumps. There's just, if you look off into the horizon, it's just a series of slumps that you're going to be hitting over and over again. And you have to accept that and push through it and be okay with making bad stuff on the regular. And I remember like one time I had like 3 or 4, 5, 10, I don't know, bad comics in a row. And and it wasn't just like people just don't appreciate what I'm doing here. It's actually good. Like, no, I was like, you know what? Yeah, these are bad. But I was like, I can't stop making bad. My brain is just in bad mode. I hit a switch, and I just didn't think I could get out of it. Like, I started to feel trapped, and like I'd have days where I was like laying face down on the ground, just like, oh, come on, brain. You were funny once. You can do it.
You still got this.
You know, like maybe the tank has been emptied and that was it.
If you had to compare yourself to like if you had to compare yourself to something that's smashing through the wall of creative block, you know, Kool-Aid Man, like are you like the slow, like in prison chipping away, digging a tunnel? Like how do you break through the wall? I'm sure that everybody has a different method of breaking through that wall, you know?
I love digging into that metaphor
more.
You a
chipper?
Yeah. You a chipper, you a smasher, you a digger. I mean, in indulge in metaphor, I'd say like any which way I can, but to me it does feel like smashing through it, because I feel like I have this string of just bad ideas, but because I allowed myself to be bad, and by allowing myself to be bad and just getting that crap out of my brain, eventually, because I believe in myself, I am going to make that next good comic, and that will rescue me. And it's going to happen. You have to tell yourself it's going to happen. And what helps is
you just keep doing art anyway.
Yes.
And allow yourself to be bad for a little bit and just keep going.
Yeah, and not like, not letting yourself be like, it's over. Your best days are behind you. You were funnier when you were younger. Now you're a confused old man that can't make a joke. You just can never let that happen. You have to be like, there is another comic out there that you haven't made yet that's going to be great. And what helps is every time you do this, every time you smash through that wall, you can then look back to that moment, and it just reinforces the possibilities. Because like I remember hitting like a wall, like a big wall, like I was saying earlier, like 7 years ago, right? I felt like I couldn't do another funny comic 7 years ago, and like I think about everything you have made since then that would not have been made if you just, threw in the towel. So when I hit that wall today or tomorrow, it's going to happen. I just remember like there's going to be a comic I make 3 years from now that only existed because today I pushed through and accepted that I'm going to be bad sometimes, and I'm going to keep making to get to that. So that is really what has kept me going, is just the momentum of overcoming it over and over and over again. And it's still going to get me down. It's not like I'm immune to it. If I, after this podcast have like 4 bad comics in a row, that's going to get me down, but it's never going to stop me.
That's really great. I feel like I've never heard that answer, because like it's kind of fun that you stumbled into answering that question, because we do ask the question about like creative block to our guests, and we've never had like that answer, and I think that's really great, because it's like it's in a fun way. It's kind of like having faith that it's gonna be okay. And
it really is
to go back to those
simple as that.
Missionaries that saved you. You had faith, and it wasn't for them.
My faith in myself and God.
When they baptized you in your saint, you knew that you were gonna get through anything.
But and to get more like specific, I mean, there are like little strategies that I like. Like, let's say my writing is getting stagnant and I just don't like the direction I'm going in. There's a couple things I'll do. Like, one is I'll just focus on the art, and I'll be like, all right, let's spice up the art then. Let's have fun with the art. Let's doodle, let's sketch, let's change it up. You know, I haven't really changed my style in a while. And then sometimes that I'll just draw a face weird. A weird expression. I'm like, okay, something's here now. And then like a joke can be, you know, extrapolated from that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I do is I write down everything. So every stupid thought that crosses my mind, I'm always in the back of my mind, for better or for worse, thinking about comics, thinking about jokes. It's kind of like a lens I see the world through. And because I'm building up this mass of mostly bad, but sometimes okay, like half-brained ideas, I can go back to that well whenever I need to and have, you know, past me help me out. You know, I've had jokes that I was like, I hit a dead end with, and I was like, I have no idea how to make this work. And then like 5 years later, I, you know, blow the dust off an old sketchbook and I see it and I'm like, because of like my writing and art had evolved enough, I was like, oh, I could see how I could do this now. Easy.
If you finish talking to me and write something down, can you let me know? Because it makes me feel really good.
Oh, if you inspire a joke, I'll make a note.
No, if you like finish talking to us here and you like write something down afterwards based off the conversation, just let me know, because that makes me feel really good.
I'll make a little note on the comic that you inspired, and then when you see that it bombed, you'd be like, oh God. I just write that down.
I did it.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a comic about like really stupid interviewers. like the worst interview ever. And I'm like, yes, I did it.
Oh, yeah, I get that a lot with like hanging out with like family.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like they fucking trip over something. Like they trip over an ottoman like Dick Van Dyke, and they're like, don't put me in your comic. Don't you do it. Or like they mess up saying a word. Oh, don't you do it. It's like, I'm going to do it.
Wow, you have so much power.
What you going to do to stop me?
Yeah, you could like threaten them to put them in your
blackmail
comic.
my family. That's actually like my third biggest source of revenue is blackmail of my friends and family to keep them out of my comics.
I love too that like your style is so specific that everybody would know exactly who it is from your family that's in the comic, right? Like, you know, it's like so hyper realistic.
Yeah, that would be very funny if like out of nowhere
everyone in your family all at once is like,
yeah. I all my blob guys, and then there's this very, very highly detailed realistic human. Yeah. But since none of my guys are wearing clothes, I guess like they're dick and vagina just out there.
Oh man, yeah, that was awesome. I feel like yeah, there's just so much good stuff in all of the stuff that you've shared with us. I like that you have like you have your two books that are out. One is called Failure and the other one is Feelings. And my question is, did you go to therapy or are the comics the therapy?
Comics are definitely the therapy.
Because they're like, I don't know. I feel like it's like, I know there are jokes and, you know, you're trying to make your audience laugh, but like there's always like, obviously, you know, like some wholesome truth in them that's like really sweet and insightful. Like,
thank you. Yeah, is you know, failure and the pathos of that. It was just it is like a lot of navel gazing, and you know, I'm a great inspiration for that subject, and it's cathartic as all hell. Like I would almost recommend doodling comics just completely just for fun, just exploring your inner demons and your thoughts and your doubts. And like a thing I think about constantly is just like why we fail and why we have shortcomings, and like how we get mad at ourselves, and like you know, like ask yourself weird questions like, oh, like why did you do that? And you're saying it to yourself, who's supposed to have like full autonomy and yet there feels like there's forces beyond you. Like an example for me is like, I think a lot about motivation and laziness and stuff like that. Because it's weird because it's always, the advice for that stuff is so stupid. It's always the opposite of what you're doing, which you don't have access to. So like, I did a comic, it's like this sloth, and he's like, how do I overcome laziness? And his girlfriend just says effort, and the sloth's like, oh, okay, well then the system's rigged. Because it's like, you know, like if you're feeling lazy and someone's like, okay, well, to stop being lazy, stop being lazy.
Yeah.
Start doing things. It's like, well, where am I supposed to get that from? Like, I have to somehow find this, you know, motivated person deep within me somewhere, apparently, and get them to triumph over my lazy self. And I just feel like that's a gold mine of humor and of like interesting comics, of just, you know, the human condition is, you know, endlessly to be talked about. And I know I just sliced out my little niche of kind of looking at it, and, you know, through my eyes.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really great. Like yeah, there's like a lot of thoughts that go into these jokes. Like how, like, I guess like your writing process for a joke. Can you kind of describe how that goes a little bit? Like, do you kind of...
Oh man, you're asking
Like
the big
punchline
one.
First,
Yeah.
like, you know, whatever.
Like, because I'm sure you don't wake up one morning and are like, it's a great comic.
Actually, you're not going to believe this. Yeah, I guess I touched on it here and there. You know, the question that everybody always wants to ask is like, where do you get your ideas? And like, how do you come up with your jokes? And people like are always like afraid or like hate that question because it's so nebulous. And I don't know, I guess like some people were like afraid to reveal their process, their secret sauce.
Are you scared right now? Just checking in.
Yeah, I'm making time so I can figure out a way to not reveal too much.
You still have time
But
to
no.
trademark this.
Yeah, my process, come out with my own self-help book.
Yeah.
The Lovenstein method.
Well, actually, there's this puddle of mysterious goop behind my house that I go outside and I drink every morning.
Yeah, I think Perry Bible Fellowship has a joke about that. It was just like he goes to this well of ideas that he pulls out of, and every time it's like a picture of Dorian Gray's situation. But my process is to really get into like the nuts and bolts. The big one is, as I mentioned earlier, always be thinking, ABT, about jokes and about comics. There is just this little hamster wheel running 24/7. So when I'm looking around the world and I'm talking to you and I'm talking with my friends and family or reading articles, there's something that's always pulling at me like, hey, there's some here, some here. So I write that all down. So I fill notebooks and my note app on my phone and all that, just wherever I can scribble it down. Combined with, I will just allow myself to have little doodle sessions where I look up a thing like, today I'm going to doodle bicycles. Today I'm going to doodle beetles. Today I'm going to doodle houses, you know, just angry people, happy people. And sometimes that knocks something loose. But to like really get into like the brass tacks is like when it comes to like the actual crafting the joke, sure, there are times where it's like a lightning bolt moment hits and it's like it's come down from God, who I believe in and worship every day. And from the heavens, I get this fully formed joke, and I can not only see the joke, but I see the panels. I see how I'm gonna lay out the art. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. You're hilarious.
That would be so funny if Jesus died on the cross just to give us comics ideas.
I think so.
The ultimate sacrifice.
I think that's, yeah. He couldn't do it as a man, but in the kingdom of heaven, he's got enough spare time to be like, what's the deal? But when I'm like actually writing a joke, it is like I will fixate on a concept or something. Like one of my favorite things to do is take a old bit of wisdom or advice or like something that's been like people just say, you know, like something that's like, oh, you know, this is common knowledge, this is common sense. And then I twist it a little bit, you know, I mess with it. Like if it's something that's supposed to motivate you, I'll make it demotivational. If it's something that's supposed to, you know, like it's a scare tactic, I make it like an encouragement, you know, like a really simple one recently I did was everybody all of a sudden started saying, stay hydrated, everybody, stay hydrated. Please, for the love of God, we all got to drink, you know, 10 gallons of water a day. You should be pissing every 7 seconds. And, you know, that's fine advice, but it is kind of weird that we got so hung up on like the exact wording too, of like stay hydrated. So I just like, well, what if I made a comic where a guy's encouraging you to stay dehydrated? You know, just giving you the opposite stupid wrong advice. And then, you know, thinking, well, what's the benefit of doing that? Why would you stay dehydrated? And I was like, well, you know, I would literally like look up like, okay, what are the medical effects of dehydration? Like, okay, yep. So you get like delirious and stuff like that. I was like, okay, well then if you're dehydrated enough, you can just kind of check out from the world because you're so delirious and delusional and out of it that you don't have to, like, nothing can hurt you.
It's like free drugs. You're hallucinating.
Yeah. Yep. So, you know, it's things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, or like taking two concepts, squishing them together. But it's a grind, you know, like I have to, like, it takes me hours and hours of just like fine tuning a joke. And then once I got the bones, I got to figure out how I'm going to word it, which seems like it's such an afterthought for a comic, but I take I every word I put into a comic, I take into, you know, account. Like I try to be as efficient as possible and use like the right, like I've spent so much time on the thesaurus.com and looking up the etymology of words and trying to like, what word absolutely perfectly encapsulates the concept that this little turtle is trying to tell this frog, you know, about.
This is like, so I'm so happy to hear that, because I feel like when I try to write, I do that, and I always thought, well, it's because English is my second language, so I don't know the words that well, and I'm like, I have always wondered if other people spend a lot of time on the thesaurus, but yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
Absolutely.
Do you have a word that you really like that you've been trying to figure out how to shoehorn into a comic, but you haven't found the right place for it?
No. It's like I do have the opposite problem sometimes where I keep going to a word and I'm like, I got to stop saying this in all of my comics.
Especially because I feel like, oops, sorry. I was going to say, I feel like comics, you don't have a lot of room for speech bubbles. Like I feel like
that's another factor.
Yeah,
there's real estate.
Exactly, and you don't want to have to. It's something that it took me a while to understand, but especially for web comics or like comics online, people don't like to spend a lot of time reading. So the least amount of words that you can have on in a speech bubble, the best it is. And so
they're
like
already reading on their phone, you know, like it's small.
Yeah, but it's got to be big and easily legible. Like I did a little guide once on like how to like write a joke for Tapas, and one of the big things I said was words are your enemy. The lesser of them you have, the better. And you know, and then there's like classic like show don't tell, which is absolutely true. There are the outliers that can make a great comic that has got these dense paragraphs, you know. But by and large, it works. But you know, for most of us, for us regulars, short and sweet is the way to go. Yeah, so like sometimes I get like big words. Big words do scare me because then it's like I have to make this fit in a fucking talk bubble. I wanted to do a comic on planned obsolescence. That's a word I do like, though. By the way, obsolescence. That just
okay,
rolls.
So
off
this is sort of answering that question. Is like you wanted to do you had a word that you were like, okay, how can I fit this word into a comic? Kind of thing?
Like the terminology I wanted, and I wanted it to be that exact term because that's what, you know, like articles throw around when they're talking about like why your iPhone breaks down early or why your toaster's a piece of shit. So like I needed the planned obsolescence in there, so I had to like fit everything else around that. So it's like I'm literally shaving letters off so I can fit this, aircraft carrier of a freaking word into this pond, basically.
Sorry. We'll cut the the lulls.
Any awkward pause? No, leave that in.
No, leave it in.
It happens in life.
No, we were just thinking about awkward.
That's a comic right there when you're talking to someone and just like everyone's lost the thread.
I was just like started drawing.
You've all arrived at the destination, then you realize you're not quite there yet. You all got off at the wrong bus stop at the same time. Like, oh, and then, it's like when everybody steps off the elevator. Like,
yeah,
wrong floor. Well,
and then you start commenting on the pause, and then you're like, no, now I'm talking about the pause, and now this pause is such a big moment. And now we're talking about it.
It's bad when you are analyzing every word that is coming out of your mouth in real time. And the jig is up. You might as well have an earpiece in your head, in your ear. It's like, run now, abort.
No, I didn't know you made a little guide for tapas. That's so great. I want to look that up and like all of your little tips and stuff because it's true. Like I think for the way you do comics is like every strip is like you have different characters. Like you don't like you might reuse a design, but they're not a recurrent character. So every time you have to set up an entirely new situation and and it's an entirely new joke environment and characters. So that's like really interesting.
Are there any drawbacks to that? Like, have you ever wished that like I would, how some comics will have like short series of like, maybe there's like 10 strips in a row that are a little story or whatever. Like I know that they used to do that in the papers a lot. Is that something that you've ever wished that you included in your comics just so you didn't have to come up with a brand new complete situation with brand new characters and set up every single comic?
Great question.
Or have you done it?
It's weird. It's almost like a hybrid thing. It's funny because like almost every single newspaper strip has characters, like recurring characters, like that's what's kind of built around, even if they're just kind of placeholders. But a phenomenon with webcomics is most of them don't have recurring characters, or the artist puts themselves in it. And I'm obviously the former. And there are pros and cons. The pro and why I do it is that it's just free and loose, and I don't have to build this world, and I don't have to maintain this world and these characters, and I don't have to worry about consistency. Or it's like, if I had a character like everybody's favorite Garfield, he's grumpy and gluttonous, and he's got these set character traits, so that's limiting in a way. They can only do so much, and and that's why like oftentimes you end up with like 20 characters because they keep boxing themselves in, and they're like, well, okay, we need something new that's coming from a different angle. I don't have to worry about that. I just have these random people in random situations. I do have recurring characters that all came about organically. The most famous one is Gabe, and Gabe is often confused as Mr. Lovenstein. Mr. Lovenstein is just the name of the comic. It was a joke to myself of making a comic strip with a proper name. Like it has its own social security number and can vote and stuff. But Gabe is like the guy with the big eyes and the little yellow hat. And he just came about because he had a personality that I could work with. It was almost like coming across like an actor, like as a director, and there's just like an actor that I gel with that can deliver like a type of energy that I need. And Gabe, who's like an endlessly to a fault, like kind, sweet, positive, never has a negative thought, always never doubts the motives of anyone else around him. He was perfect fodder for like the horrible world that my characters occupy, of just a lot of hostility. There's a lot of failures, a lot of powerful emotions, and he works well with that because he always kind of bucks everything that I'm doing. So I'm allowed to put him in situations that the humor is just derived from his unfailing positivity in the face of putting him in like really sad situations. Because like almost all, when I think of a Gabe comic, it's almost like I think about like something very sad, something very lonely, something like feeling like a social pariah. And it's like, well, Gabe would just push right through that. You know, he wouldn't let it get him down. So like if he was like, I have one where he is talking about like, I guess I'll do the most famous one where he's talking about like how great the internet is because you can just talk to anybody anywhere in the world. Like it's a miracle. It's amazing. And his first thing he says is like, "Hello, world," and the first response he gets is someone saying, "Kill yourself." But he's just like, he says marvelous. He's happy. He's just happy to be talking to somebody. And that's the advantage, I think, of having a recurring character is one, it gives you a brand. Like all of my profile pictures and all my social media is Gabe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like people get attached to him. He's on my merch. He's on the cover of one of my books. And also then like I have like this stock character that I can build jokes around. And everything else is fallen in the same way. Like I have like a turtle, this weird looking turtle, and like a frog guy and a sad koala. Even like God himself is like almost like a recurring character in my comics. So like when a joke I feel like fits those characters, I'll use them. But they just kind of pop up every once in a while. And the advantage of those is that's when we're talking merchandising, that's how you succeed with merch.
When people know that character. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like my derpy looking dog. People want that derpy looking dog on a shirt. They want a sticker of him. You know, I made a plush of that. You know, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to make those types of things. So that's why like I'm okay with where I'm at, where it's a hybrid of most of the time random sweaty blob guys and gals, and every once in a while I bring in someone from the crew, someone from the cast. You know, one of my stars. I pull them out of their trailer when they're not being prima donnas, and give them their own comic.
Have you ever done like an A-team like this comic? I'm putting all the stars in there. I'm bringing all the characters back. This is the reunion.
Yeah, big when like networks put all their celebrities together. The Avengers of Mr. Lovenstein.
I won't.
Not really. They're so like they really stay in their lane. And I've had a little bit of crossover, but the only time that happened, and it was almost like a passing of the torch, was I had this character back in the day that like old, Mr. Lovenstein heads are gonna know, called Id. And he was like one of my first recurring characters. And his thing was he was just fucking weird and unpredictable. Mm-hmm. But the problem was it became too hard to write for a character like that. It's just like, well, he's basically a blank slate. And then Gabe came about, and Gabe was way better. So then I had a comic with both of them together, and I felt like like passing a torch, like I'm killing Id. Id walk so Gabe could run, kind of a thing. R.I.P.
R.I.P. We got a lot of questions from Patreon, Instagram, and Twitter. I really like this question from our patron, Mallard. They ask, the act of starting a webcomic is so daunting and intimidating to me.
Yes.
Do you have any tips for overcoming that fear of starting a big, long-running project like that?
Well, the first problem there is immediately assuming it's going to be this big, long-running project. Really, the best way is to take it one comic at a time. And because I see a lot where people have like built out these plans, they have this roadmap, they got the name for their comic, they got their characters, like they've drawn their characters a whole bunch. And then it comes time to actually make the comics, and they freeze up, and it's not living up to this vision they had, and it all collapses. I think it's much easier to just start. Just start making comics, simple comics. And not only are you making them, you're putting them out there, You know, it doesn't have to be like on every single platform on the internet. It doesn't have to. It could even start with just like your friends or like an art group you're a part of. But you got to share them. You got to have let other people get their eyeballs on it, get an outside perspective. And then just think of it this way, like every single time you do a comic strip, you've just learned something. It's just an opportunity. It's just like you're going, like I said, you're going to the dojo every time you make a comic and put it out there. You're going to just take away something from it and put that into the next comic and then the next comic. And, you know, as we've spoken about a lot already, like there's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be better ones. There's going to be worse ones. But, and from a production side, you know, a lot of people get hung up on like how I make my comics. Like what software do you use? Like what kind of graphics tablet should I use? It's like, buddy, just take a sheet of paper and a pencil and just start going. Like most people have smartphones, which has got a camera on them. That's basically like a cheap scanner. So just doodle your comic, take a photo, post it online. There's some people that's their whole comic is that it's all like physical media that they like put on like a post-it note or something. Don't just like remove as many barriers as you can to get to the actual production side of just like producing, creating, writing, thinking about it, talking about it, sharing it, being inspired by other people, getting yourself involved in the comic community or whatever slice of that community that you gel with most. And you'll find your voice. Like, you know, not everybody's built for comedy. Some people like it's comedy adjacent, like slice of life can be funny, but it's not always humor directed. And, you know, I think that's why a lot of people end up going with a comic with themselves in it, because it started off as like a diary/journal comic about their own lives. And that's a great way to start because we're all pulling from life. You're just being a little bit more specific to your own life and just kind of like weird shit happens every day. Or you have weird thoughts, or like you're just out and about and you see something, or you witness something that is unique. Make that into a comic. And so the biggest thing I could say though is just make things. Just don't even worry about the format. If you feel constricted by it's got to be 3 panels, it's got to be 4 panels, just let it be loose. Let it be a single panel. Let it be a series of images. Like Instagram has got like the slideshow, and so is TikTok of just it can just be a series of images, like just loosely connected thoughts. And maybe you end up moving away from comics because you like the art more, or maybe you become a writer. You won't know until you start doing it. So that's my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. I feel like that's the hardest thing to overcome, right? Is like to just like start, to just like not overthink it. Like overthinking it always kind of kills it.
Yeah, and you want to be good. Of course, we all want to make the best thing ever always, but you're just not, and that's totally fine. And if you lower the stakes and you just make it like you tell yourself like I'm just doing a dumb little thing and I don't care. Even if you do care, just tell yourself you don't care. It does make it easier.
I'm also surprised. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I'm also surprised sometimes, like, the more like shit posty like a comic will look, sometimes the better it does. Like, there's a thing on the internet where it's like, if it looks a little bad, it's almost better.
Yeah, I mean, that's like memes have proven that to be true. Like, there's like a barrier of quality where if you go above it, sometimes it feels intimidating and doesn't feel like it's meant for you anymore. Whereas if it's crummy and crappy looking and looks like anyone could do it, well, then anybody can enjoy it too, and then anybody can get. Because I feel like that's what memes do. Is memes allow people who don't normally think they're creative or can make creative things, all of a sudden like, oh, I actually have a spin on this meme I think I could do, and it's no big deal. And it's absolutely true with comics. And if your style is rough and your writing is rough, that is appealing to a lot of people. And that could be your secret to your success is, and it's going to be through your filters. No matter how hard you try, it's going to be coming from you.
Yeah.
So this damned as hard as you try, you're gonna taint it.
And that could be the mysterious goop in your backyard.
Yeah.
You drink
Your own
every
special.
morning.
Find your own special goop.
Find your own special goop.
That's what Gwyneth Paltrow did.
From at Merc Works from Instagram, who was a
Dave, my good friend Dave.
Dave, who was a guest on the show prior. Look for his episode. His episode is insane, everybody. It's really
Dude, he has so
wild
many
one.
crazy stories.
He's wild, man. He operates on a different level. He's either the chillest guy you've ever met or the most high energy guy you've ever met.
That's so funny because when I met him, he was so chill, and then
he's like it's like a switch on his back.
But his story, but I feel like his stories were nuts. Like he was chill, but he had like crazy wild stories.
He tells them well too.
So we're using Justin's episode to tease Mercworks episode. But he does have a question. And Dave asked, what's it like being so smart and funny?
You came to the wrong person, Dave. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
He doesn't have answers.
I think he commented on the wrong episode prompt. You may want to figure out which artist he was actually trying to reach. So.
You're too...
I can't help Dave there.
You can't
so
help
humble.
here.
So humble.
Too humble.
So humble.
Gotta stay humble.
So humble.
Humble before the Lord.
I like this question from at B Sarich 711. What is your least favorite comic that everyone else loves?
Jesus Christ. Oh God.
Wait, like of yours. I don't know whether you think that we're trying to get you to talk shit on other comic artists.
Yeah, no.
Okay, no. I was taken as like a comic
that
I
would
made.
Have been so funny. If
we're setting you up to roast someone and cause some real drama, some real juice.
Who's the comic that you hate the most?
Don't get me started on Heathcliff. God, that's tough to think of on the spot. Because it's funny, because those are the funniest ones where, and I think that lends even more credence to just putting out bad stuff you think is bad. Sometimes you think it's bad, and everybody else is like, no, actually, you idiot, it's awesome. And you don't know why, but sure, so just keep posting it. I think the biggest one, I get it, but it's not that funny to me. I did one that was like almost like a parody of comics that are about like a personified life character coming in and beating you up or like ruining your day. And so it's just a guy and he's frowning, and then he gets a smile on his face, and then this other guy comes in and he just has life written on his chest, and he says no, and then the guy frowns, and that's it. I was just like, I was trying to like reduce that type of joke to its absolute bare essentials. As, it's one of those things that happens a lot in like parody and satire, where it's like it becomes the thing it's making fun of, right? Like my good friend Alex Norris with webcomic name, I think the same phenomenon happened there, where it started as a parody and then just became what it was parodying in a great way. But it's similar in that way, where I was just like, these comics about like life and like how life can beat you up. What if I just made him say no and then made you sad? And everybody loves that comic. It's just like every time I post it, it does well, and because it's so raw, I guess. It's just like, yeah, that is how it is. Like you're feeling good, and then just some force beyond your control knocks you down a notch and keeps you kind of neutral. And there's even like spin-offs. Like there's one where someone changed life. They swapped out life with data.
No.
And then that opened up like a whole new audience of people who are like scientists and programmers and stuff like that. And it's even more abstract to me, where I just like, okay, I understand the concept, but it's just not funny to me personally. But I'm happy for you. And yeah, it's like one of my best-selling prints are those two.
Do you think it's because it's like a meme format? Like the limited amount of words made it like perfect for memes, and it just kind of spread like crazy.
Yeah, that's another factor too, and that's a funny thing you bring up. I see this a lot, where people the haters will say that we're making a comic in hopes that it becomes a meme. As like a strategy for like a marketing strategy. Like they clearly have got this design so things can be swapped out and made into a meme and they'll go viral. And I can tell you definitively that I've never done that. I can go on record. I don't really love when my stuff becomes memes because it becomes out of your control, and they can start putting they can put whatever they want in it. Now think about that. They can put whatever they want in it.
I mean, Pepe is a good example of that.
Yeah. Like Matt Fury, with was it Boys Club or something? Yeah, and like you read that comic, and it's just like a bunch of stoner animals just hanging out and being gross and stuff, and then just what it became is so completely out of control, and like he has to like disavow his own creation, which is insane. So, but my counter to that is I think what people don't realize is that comics are just have the structures of what we now call memes, like especially now that we like the phenomenon of like there's no recurring characters, and a thing people like to do is like have a concept label, a character labeled as a concept. It's just that is a format that can be used as a meme. It's not that comics are now being made to be memes,
Yeah. I see what you're saying. It's like memes just ended up being a format that's very similar to what comics were already doing.
Exactly.
And it just kind of like
that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah. I got you. No, that's really insightful. That's really funny. It's really interesting. I've always wondered what it actually feels like to have comics become memes, because I don't know, from everybody who's had a comic that became a meme, it sounds like it's not a great feeling,
right? They always like very upset about it, hate it in the end. I've never had anything like really truly go viral, thankfully. Like the closest I came was like this comic where it's got like a frog and a turtle, and the turtle says he's going to change the world, and the turtle's like, for the better, and the turtle does not answer. Like, and that became, someone used that as the blueprint for like this meme with Anakin and Padme from Star Wars, where they use the exact same dialogue of like, I'm gonna change the world for the better, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, I had seen the meme and it didn't even like click with me. Like I had to go on the fucking Know Your Meme website for them to explain to me that like they use your comic, dude. Like, oh yeah, I guess.
Whoa, really? I had no idea. That's crazy.
But I mean, thankfully, it's removed from me, right? It's the
because it's not your art.
Yeah.
They just took your structure. They didn't.
The joke art structure.
Yeah,
it's cool. But like, it's nothing bad. Like, the explosive levels, like Casey Green and the This Is Fine dog. Nothing, I've never experienced anything like that. And I'm kind of thankful I have it based on everything they say.
We are not going to go through every single questions, but let's try to hit maybe... I feel like we've already kind of addressed the question from Alec to Draw, which was how much of your inspiration comes from your daily life versus pulling ideas out of nowhere. Do you pull ideas out of quote-unquote nowhere at all? I don't. Does that exist?
I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, there is those lightning bolt moments where something, like I'm thinking about something and it clicks in a way where like the comic just drew itself in my brain from start to finish. Very rarely does it happen, but still I am thinking about something. It's not like I was like, laying on a couch, like watching Supermarket Sweep, like in a vegetal state. I should do a comic about Prometheus and the eagle and start drawing it immediately. Doesn't happen.
From @Triangle Cyclops on Twitter, should Sonic have blue arms or tan arms?
Great question. And I'm very passionate about this. It irrationally angers me that they gave him tan arms. It was one of the worst design decisions Sega's ever made. And that wrong was only righted by the new Sonic movies, where despite making that horrific, ugly version that everybody hated, the one thing they did right was they gave him blue arms. And I think that should be the new standard.
Because if it's tan arms, it looks like he's wearing a sleeveless shirt. Sort
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, he looks
showing
like
off the guns.
Yeah, he looks like you could hang out at the trailer park or something. Just, it doesn't look like. I think when people draw Sonic, they draw him with blue arms until someone is like, actually, he's got brown arms, and you're like, what? No, really? Oh, like even like the new Sonic designs, as cool as his green eyes are and his giant shoes, he's still got those fucking brown arms. So yeah, blue with a bullet.
I guess I'm only asking this question because I think you guys are friends. From @extrafabulous on Twitter.
Don't know this guy.
You don't know this
Sounds
guy?
like an asshole. Fuck this guy.
Fuck this
No,
guy.
he's my friend. I've actually worked on it with him quite a bit, yeah.
No, because the question is, how big is it? So if you didn't like him, I wouldn't ask.
I'll say, I don't want to get too specific, but I'll say, whatever you're imagining, triple it.
Triple it.
I'm not going to say what.
And then subtract 5. And then add 2.
And we're not going to tell you what those metrics, like what those measurements are or what scale they're at, but just subtract the number 5 and add the number 2, and you will arrive at the answer. I am glad you brought up Extra Fabulous, because that is like a thing where we have a separate series I do with him called, it was originally called Neighborhood Land, and that was a unique experiment where we try to make a Patreon exclusive comic.
Oh, interesting.
And see if that would work. And it kind of did, but not really. But it was fun.
What does that mean, kind of, but not really? Is it just that, like, you didn't perform as well as you hoped it would? Or, like...
Yeah, it just, like, there's a ceiling, I felt. Because, the goal was never post these comics outside of this Patreon. And you have to pay to see them. So it was like a truly paywalled exclusive experience. And it had like a good following, but like it kind of just hit like a high and then just kind of like stayed there and kind of hovered. And it was just like, we could not figure out like, well, how do you make this bigger without ever showing a comic?
Oh yeah. Huh.
That's the trick. The trick is like, you got to put shit out for free.
Yeah.
To get them hooked and then lead them in this and that direction. But that led to being we took those comics and we renamed them Eggs and Ben, and now we're putting them on this other platform called Tiny View, which is similar to Tapas. And they're another comic platform trying to like make it sustainable for artists by paying them for their comics. And that is a fun series because that is, like we were talking earlier about recurring characters. That one is actually one that has like recurring characters. The titular Eggs and Ben, and they have their character type. So that is a fun outlet for me where I'm able to explore having recurring characters that like have to have like consistent character traits.
Tiny View is also curated, right? Like not anybody can submit.
Yeah, that one
comics.
is unique in that like they specifically hire and reach out and have paid artists and you can't just like go on there and start posting.
Yeah.
Unique approach. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. From @Mr. Happy Mind. I don't know if you guys, where did you hide the bodies?
Oh God, I was so terrified that this question would finally come up.
Because he has to answer. He's compelled by the court, by the Bible that he swore that oath on with those missionaries.
I've been avoiding this for so long, but I finally have to come clean. This is like the Jinx moment. If you've ever seen the show The Jinx.
Oh my God. If you actually came out about the people that you murdered on this podcast, it would
be
make
huge
this
for you
podcast
guys.
blow up and it would be our biggest episode.
Do you want me to like go, like you want to like pause the recording and I'll go kill a couple people and then come back on and then like admit to it on your show?
Yeah, the only thing is we have to make sure that it doesn't sound like we asked you to do it, because then we're implicated in the. But that could turn into a big court case thing. It could be televised. Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. Like maybe this is the best thing for us.
This is how we become big, thanks to your murders.
And there's so many distractions in the outside world. I'd probably get so many comics done inside the big clink.
Oh wait. Why are you going to jail?
Oh, because I'm going to jail. Well, if we're basically asking you to do a murder for our podcast.
Oh yeah. Well, it's simple as just like deleting this part.
Okay.
And then you ask me about the bodies. We go back to the bodies question, and
I keep accidentally
I have the most incredible answer.
asking you to kill somebody. Like we're like, okay, we'll take this part out, and then we won't ask you.
You keep asking me to kill people every time we hang out. Every conversation goes in that direction. That guy right there, just fucking do it right now.
No.
Take that rock. Take that rock.
Get huge. We'll get
Calm
huge
calm
from
down,
this.
Sean. No.
This is the big moment. This is this big shining moment.
You just want you're too afraid to do it yourself, and you just want to vicariously have someone else do it for you.
Yeah, I'm
Get that.
more of a, like a puppet master manipulator, kind of like
Yeah.
Charles Manson style than like
Yeah, Charles Manson. I was gonna say, yep. Yeah, I brought that on myself because I quote tweeted you guys, and I was like, please don't ask me where I hide the bodies. And of course, you tell people
no.
not to do something. And what do they do? So yeah, I am not going to be disclosing the location of these supposed bodies.
scavenger hunt.
Alleged,
Just give some
Scavenger.
fun clues. Give some fun
Yeah,
clues.
I'll become the
Geocache.
Riddler.
Geocaching. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with this fun activity planned for y'all, going outside and scavenger hunt some bodies, maybe it's time for us to wrap up this episode.
I gotta
Time for us to go
immediately
primal.
leave the house. And everyone else should too, because this podcast is over.
Yep.
We have to go find something else to do in a geocache.
Just run out the door
Speaking of murder,
Speaking of murder.
and scream, I'm trying to find the bodies.
we're killing this podcast episode because it's finished.
Ooh, good one. Good one.
Stick a fork in it. That would be a time for a sound effect.
Wimp, 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 wimp. All right. That's the end of the creative block. Justin.
All right.
Thank you so much for being our guest and sharing your story.
No, thank you. This is amazing. I get so it's very rare to be able to talk about, this stuff and like the creative process and the production side of it and the business aspect of it. So this has been a treat. You guys have been great.
And just to let you know, after this podcast, writes an idea down
I already wrote down
about
a
you.
couple.
And also, thanks to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor, Clemens, for editing the podcast, and Marco for helping us produce the show.
If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. You can also support us by subscribing, commenting, and liking, and all that good stuff. It helps us reach out a wider audience. Click the link in the description of this episode for Justin's socials and also for Patreon. I've been your host, Vee.
And I was Sean. Keep being creative. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye forever.
Goodbye forever.